Everybody, Mo here, and today I'm bringing you guys another episode of Sweaty Thursday, the try-hard series that's meant for people that didn't have all week or don't have a bunch of time to spam games and ladder and want to prepare for, their gaming, climbing time on the weekend. That the small time they do have available, make sure you don't waste it, and that you know exactly what to expect and what decks you should be playing. It's geared towards people that, like I said, don't have too much time. Maybe you're a college student, family person, anything like that, where you can't just spend 6+ hours every single day grinding. You only have Saturday through Sunday or Friday night through Sunday to be grinding ladder, and of course everyone wants to get their Gauntlet for their Prime Glory wins. So this is the series that's going to be for you guys. So yeah, before we get into the video and into the decks, I wanted to remind you guys that 68% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you could do me a huge favor, click that subscribe button, comment down below for the algorithm, all that type of stuff for the YouTube algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. We have about 2 weeks, I think, left until seasonals. So we have only 2 more Sweaty Thursdays, I think, for the season. And then next Sweaty Thursday will be for the Gauntlet. So the actual, last chance Gauntlet to qualify. So you better show up for that one. But yeah, and the last thing is join my Discord. Huge place for competitive content for LoR. A lot of people are hitting Diamond for the first time this season. They've joined my Discord. They've talked about it. They're hitting Masters and Diamond, hitting all their goals. So really cool place if you're aspiring to be a competitive LoR player, or you're interested in getting in there and talking with some different competitive LoR players. My Discord, the place to be. But that's going to be it for the intro. Let's get into the actual decks. So these are the decks that I would highly recommend you play on ladder this weekend, with a special guest, like a special appearance, or honorable mention is what they're called, and an honorable mention that's not quite on here. And then also I'll go over what I think a very good lineup would be for the Gauntlet for this weekend. So to start things off, best decks for ladder are, of course, going to be Ionia Nami, like Nami Bilgewater Ionia with one Lee Sin, 2 Lee Sin, whatever it is you want to play. Excuse me, I think I just took this off of one of the highest Nami Ionia players on ladder. So it looks like they're all the way on 2 Lee Sin, 1 TF. Very solid. This deck is very good. It's decent matchup into Pirates, decent matchup into Plunder. You lose to very much these and the people basically have to hard counter you for you to lose, or obviously you could just not draw well. The Plunder matchup is pretty close. It's pretty 50-50. Depends on if they have an aggressive opener, then depends on if you can stop, their GP from open attacking you. If they play really well on the Plunder side, it can be hard for the Nami player to kind of, deal with everything, because there's just so many threats. And of course, there's always the aggro threat of you just starting extremely low. But for the most part, I mean, Nami Ionia is looking to be extremely good, easily one of the best, if not the best deck in the game right now, and it's just really hard to counter. It's really hard to deal with a deck that has nice early game protection because of things like Double Trouble, and then this surprise I'm killing you all the way from 20 with Nami, and then 2 elusives or something, or 1 elusive sometimes, and crazy shit like that. The next deck we're going to talk about is Plunder, or not gonna really talk about it, but kind of mention is Plunder. So that's the deck I've mainly been playing on ladder, basically just this and Pirates. This is the exact list I've been playing. I've been playing the triple Ice Shard version, so the Cameron Hanzo version. So Ice Shard's really good for the anti-aggro matchup, as well as being able to just have random removal if you have a Keg out, or sometimes Redway, but mostly if you have a Keg in play off of Gangplank. The Ice Shard's dealing 2 to everything. It's like a mini avalanche at fast speed, is pretty cool. And also sometimes if you have Sejuani, frostbiting things at fast speed can be better than at burst. So for instance, if you're playing against the Nami Ionia deck, and you just go warning shot all of their stuff down to 0 attack so they can't kill you, then you go, okay, you've used your Sejuani trigger now I'm going to use the rest of my spells to pump my units up, and then sometimes they still kill you even through the Sejuani frostbite. So that's why the downside is obviously it can be denied and nopified, but if they don't have deny or nopify, Ice Shard can burst their stuff at fast speed and they can't pump their units afterwards. Which is very cool and very nice. So that's one of the reasons I play Ice Shards. Yeah, you can miss your allegiance more often, but for the most part, I hit allegiance, pretty fine. Your other option for this, if you don't want to play 6 Freljord, you can play the Castaway. You can play this guy, Piltover and Castaway. I'm just not a huge fan of this guy. I don't think he really provides too much for you. And I'd rather just have the Ice Shards for the mirror match and guaranteed Plunder proc, stuff like that. Honestly, I'd rather play the what is it? The 2-mana Overwhelm guy. I'd rather play Tusk Speaker over Castaway. So if you're not interested in an Ice Shard, just go ahead and play Tusk Speaker. I think this card is also extremely good. Yeah, he's really good at triggering Plunder, and he's really good at being the aggro plane. Honestly, this is probably better in the meta if you're going to be playing. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this right now, actually. I'm going to play this card because it'll be better against Nami Ionia because it allows you to be more aggressive and have more consistent like early game pressure. So that's what I would play. The third deck here is going to be Pirates. This is basically the last two decks I've been playing is Pirates and Plunder. Really comes down to just how I'm feeling on the day, how many things I'm hitting. So you see here we're on one Slippery Wave Rider because it is really good against basically Heimer Norra. It's really good against Heimer Norra. The random decks out there, like if people are still playing Red Gwyn, this deck is good against, or this card's good against that. It's really good in the mirror match because it allows you to basically trade everything and then just say like, hey, I have this elusive unit that you can't really deal with. And if they don't have like exactly Riptide Sermon for your Slippery Wave Rider, then you're probably winning the game. But other than that, it's pretty stock Pirates list, you know, plays the Shell Shocker, all the type of stuff. If you really don't want to play Slippery Wave Rider, you could easily just like take out a Slippery Wave Rider and then start playing like a couple of Make It Rains. But right now I'm still on the triple Wave Rider. Like you can go down to like 2i or go like drop a like one drop here somewhere, like drop a Butcher and then play 2 Make It Rains. That's perfectly fine too. If you're expecting a lot of Pirates, Make It Rain is extremely strong in the mirror match. So you could do that as well. And the last deck we're going to talk about here for ladder is going to be Shurima Ionia Lee Sin. So basically Lee Sin Shurima is really good into Plunder. And it probably beats the Nami variants. The only issue is this deck, unlike the Nami variant, is basically solo dependent on finding your Lee Sin. If you don't draw Lee Sin or don't find Lee Sin, this deck is pretty bad. Like you don't actually have a good way to kill people if you don't draw your Lee Sin. The good news is if you draw your Lee Sin, this is you know, probably on par with the if not better than the Nami version. It's just that the Nami version has so many different ways to kill you because they can draw Nami, or they can draw Shelly, or they can level their Twisted Fate, or they can play Lee Sin. You know, it's like there's just so many different threats and so many different ways to get there compared to the Lee Sin Shurima version. But a lot of people are putting up great numbers with Lee Sin Shurima, so obviously that can't be that bad. And the honorable mention I'm going to mention is, of course, Heimerdinger Norra. Video coming out on that tomorrow, by the way. We see here, oops, where's he at here? We see B-Man hit all the way up to 767 LP using Heimerdinger Norra. Deck's been really, really good. You just auto-concede the Nami Ionia matchup, but you have game against just about everything else. I've beaten this quite a bit with Plunder and with Pirates, but sometimes they get draws that are just like, yeah, you play Champion, I'm an Morph Champion. Oh, you play Champion, I'm an Vengeance Champion. And it can just be, you know, they could just have their answers line up against Plunder consistently. And then there's some games where you just draw like Poopy and then you lose. So that's the reason why I didn't put on there, because it's not the most consistent deck in the world. Even though like rank 2 is playing it, or they're playing it everywhere. They're playing Heimer Viger, or sorry, Norra Viger, and number 3 is playing Norra Heimer. So 2 and 3 are playing Norra decks. 4 and 5 is another honorable mention, are playing Timelines. This guy's playing Timelines, don't let him fool you. These both are playing Timeline decks here. So Timelines is another honorable mention. The issue is I just think that deck overall is going to be less consistent and just weaker than playing something like just Plunder or one of these Ionia decks or Pirates. So this is basically the 4 decks I'd highly recommend for ladder right now. And this is what I would be playing. I might play a little bit of Heimer Norra, but that deck's just not consistent enough for my taste. I'd much rather just play like Plunder and Pirates. Yeah, and so we'll get into the lineups here. So for Gauntlet, what would I bring? My Gauntlet lineup would probably just consist of 100% I'd be bringing Sejuani and be bringing Plunder. I'd 100% be bringing a Lee Sin deck, and then I'd be playing Pirates. So this right here would be my personal lineup. I'd bring Pirates, Gangplank Sejuani, and then I would bring the Shurima thing, the Shurima Ionia. If you don't want to play Pirates, another thing you can do is you can just take Lee Sin out of this Ionia deck. You just play 3 Twisted Fates instead of the Lee Sin, and then boom, this lineup is really good. This like double Ionia with Plunder lineup is also extremely strong. But I wanted to let you guys know, again, I have to say this every week before people start messaging me and yelling at me on Discord and Twitter. Play whatever you're comfortable with. Don't just play the good decks. If you play the good decks bad, then you will not win as much with them. As you know, play decks you know how to play. Play decks you are comfortable playing. That will go so much further if you can do that than just picking up 3 decks because they're good, playing them for the first time in your Gauntlet, and then losing with them. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Basically, you bring any 3 tier 1 decks or any 3 good decks, any 3 decks you know how to play into Gauntlet, and you'll do fine with it. Gauntlet is not the most competitive thing. I think most people just kind of play it because it's a fun game mode to play and they want to rack up the trophies. But if you want to try hard, I highly recommend you learning these decks anyways for seasonals. Like, we know there's a patch coming up next week, but we don't know exactly what's going to be hit. So I would just recommend, learning the good decks. That way you can have a grasp of the fundamental ideas of how to play them in case they don't just get gutted. Then now you have an extra week's worth of practice on them and stuff like that, which is pretty good. And then, yeah, just play the decks with high power levels, play the decks that you know how to play well, and just go to town, get your free Prime Glory, get ready for that last chance call next week. And then make sure to come back next week. That's going to be it for this episode of Sweaty Thursday. Again, come back next week because it is going to be the last chance Gauntlet Sweaty Thursday, so an extremely important one. It will mostly be focused on seasonal lineups, Gauntlet lineups, what lineups you can bring to try to counter the most popular decks, whatever it is. It's going to be huge. We are going to have a really, hopefully a really big patch next week. It's going to shake things up a lot. You're only going to have a couple days before the last chance Gauntlet, so I'll be here. This is going to be the #1 spot to get your competitive content, to know what lineups are going to be really good, what lineups beat those lineups, stuff like that. So that's going to be it for this video. Really make sure you tune in next week for the Sweaty Thursday episode. That's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next video.